Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our FST Postgraduate Preparation event. As undergraduate students, especially those in our final year of study, it is important for us to know our options regarding postgraduate studies and the benefits of pursuing postgraduate degrees. Today, we have professionals from each of the 5 departments under FST who will be giving presentations on postgraduate degrees in their field. Through this event, we hope to give all of you a clearer idea of what opportunities are available to you at the postgraduate level, as well as advice on how you could excel at this level of study. If you have any questions regarding postgraduate studies, feel free to leave them in the chat box, as we will be having a question and answer session. My name is Amy Ramdat. I'm the DLS representative for years 1 and 2, and I will be hosting this event with Mr. Matura, the Guild FST representative, who I will now pass you on to.
Thank you, Amy Ramdat. Such a lovely introduction to a very historic and a very important event. So good afternoon, everyone. As Amy said, I am Mr. Jeremiah Mathura. I'm the outgoing Guild FST representative for the 2021-2022 academic year. And as Amy said, I will also be co-hosting the FST Postgraduate Preparation event. This is the first of its kind. And as your Guild FST representative, I want like you all to know that I'm also a final year student who would like to study postgrad in UE. I am in the chemistry and physics department for my undergrad, and I want to do my MPhil in chemistry, hopefully this year. So this event was heavily requested by you, the undergraduate students, and we at the FST Student Council has delivered. The FST Student Council would have arranged this event, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending this, taking time from your busy semester to attend such an important initiative. I will now pass you on to my colleague, who is the FST Guild representative on the St. Augustine Association of Postgraduate Students, and take it away, Ms. Krishma Raman.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, lecturers, FST Student Council, and you, the undergraduate students. I hope you all can hear and see me well. Firstly, I would like to thank the current FST Student Council for seeing the need for an event of this nature and implementing a forum for the discussion as you, the current undergraduate students, try to make this difficult decision in what's next in life. Luckily, all the presenters here today would be able to give you some information on what's possible and the academic options available to you. I've been asked to cover a couple topics today, so let's get right into it. As a final year undergraduate student, the questions you've probably been asking yourself recently are, what now? Do I continue to study? Do I get a job? Do I do both? And the final decision is ultimately yours. So our job today really is just to offer some guidance and knowledge on what's available in the academic field. The best place to start would be the UE Postgraduate Admissions website. From here, you would be able to see all the programs offered by the different faculties, the application process, and the documents necessary for it, scholarships, and much more pertinent information. They also have an online support button whereby there are CSRs available, just a message away if you have any questions. This is a feature I really like because they do respond in a timely manner. Another great website to become familiar with is that of the Graduate Studies and Research. Here, they give much more details on what's available and the resources you can use during the course of your study. Through both these websites, you would be able to get access to the faculty postgraduate booklets and the financial booklets, as well as contact information for all your lecturers. It is integral that you research your options and make an informed decision after asking all the appropriate and relevant questions. And trust me, when making a decision as large as this one, no question is too small or too silly. As it pertains to my role as the FST postgraduate representative, I typically don't dabble in the registration process. However, if requested, I can liaise with different departments or staff members on your behalf or put you in direct contact with them for further assistance. My role allows me to act as a liaison between the Guild of Students and the faculty or department or the Dean's office or lecturers as it seeks your best interest. When you are a postgraduate student, the Guild Postgraduate Rep, which is currently me, can assist with following up and in some cases fast-tracking queries as it pertains to your financial clearance, issues that you may be having with your supervisors or departments when you're conducting your research or doing any projects. We can also lobby for your case as an academic board meeting if necessary, amongst other things. During my tenure, I have formed a WhatsApp group to increase the communication between my office and students so that I am more approachable and have a convenient medium for the students to contact me. Through this group, I am able to hear their concerns as well as inform them of important deadlines and opportunities that they may be interested in. My role, therefore, in summary, is to assist with the things necessary to make your postgraduate experience as smooth and as seamless as possible, whilst maintaining a quality academic education as you build your career and pursue your ambitions. In this group, we also share opportunities such as workshops, scholarships, internships, and even some careers, which you may be interested in and beneficial to your future. The decision to pursue a postgraduate program is a huge one, and all the presenters today will be able to offer some guidance as it pertains to their field. I would like to wish you all the best in making this decision, especially in these different and difficult times. Good luck, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. And I'll pass you over to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you so much, Christopher, for your insight as our postgraduate representative on where we could find out more about postgraduate studies. We will now move on to our departmental presentations. So for our first presentation, we have Dr. Molina Mccasker, who is a senior lecturer that joined the Department of Life Sciences at FST in 2016. She earned an MSc in biotechnology, majored genetic and cellular engineering from Sofia University in Bulgaria, and a PhD in biochemistry from Wageningen University in the Netherlands. She has over 25 years of experience working in various areas such as virology, immunology, and cell culture. Her recent research activities include the isolation and characterization of biologically active post-defense peptides from frogs for development of therapeutic agents. Dr. Mccasker is quite keen on contributing to the research life of DLS and encourages students to get involved in various projects aligned with the interests of the academic staff members. In addition to teaching at both the undergraduate and postgraduate level, she maintains active international collaborations, manages several local and international grants, and currently supervises 3 postgraduate students. For the past 4 years, she has been the DLS representative for MPhil and PhD students. I will now pass you on to Dr. Mccasker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just give me a moment to share my screen and we can start from here. Right, so all protocols observed, and I really appreciate the invitation that I received from the FST Guild, and especially I'm indebted to Ms. Ramdat for keeping the communication with me and having me today speaking on behalf of the Department of Life Sciences. So I will try to fit a lot of information within these 10 minutes, but if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask me at any given time. Many of you are aware that our head of department is Professor Judith Gobin, and she is the first professor from the Faculty of Science and Technology. So many of you already are asking this question, okay, I'm graduating soon, what's next? Some of you are thinking about going into the work-related field. Maybe you have already jobs secured, but some of you are really wondering what else can you add to your undergraduate level of education. So I'll try to answer some basic questions, but please don't hesitate to pose some more. So the first one is, why you? So soon you'll be graduating, and perhaps your GPA will be allowing you to think about getting admission to one of the programs, postgraduate programs, such as the master's program or the Enfield program. Additionally, you might have started already working on a project during your undergraduate courses, or perhaps you did even a capstone project in your ESST program at our department. So perhaps this is an interesting topic and you want to expand it further. Or on the other hand, you might have a new idea, interesting idea in mind, and you want to write a proposal and see where it will take you. Or perhaps during the last year of education, you just got very interested in particular science topic because of your lecturer in the class. You never know. So finally, if you already have a job and you are not satisfied with that only, you might wish to challenge yourself even further. So please, provided you can afford this financially, why not consider it? On the other side, you might be asking a question, why DLS? So, well, these are numerous reasons for that. I'll mention just a few of them. First of all, DLS employs academic staff members with rich research experiences. In addition, it offers very diverse range of research topics that are relevant both locally and regionally. Additionally to that, it maintains extensive collaborations, and why not you just become part of it? In addition to that, we have a very vibrant postgraduate students community that are contributing both to teaching and research. And of course, last but not the least, the DLS is hosting the Zoology Museum, which recently gained a lot of media attention because of the latest discovery of a new species from Trinidad. And it hosts also the National Herbarium of Trinidad and Tobago, both of which are having very rich collections that are gonna be made available to anyone who would like to continue and do research. So perhaps you are asking yourself, how can I join the department at the postgraduate level? Well, there are different avenues to do that, and I'll be just very briefly going over and mentioning some of those. For example, you can apply to one of our programs, either master's program or Enfield PhD programs. Additionally, you can try to get associated as a volunteer, either on a research project or just tagging along and going on a field trip to collect samples and to help some research students to gain their samples. Perhaps you can be employed also as a demonstrator if you have a strong interest in teaching. And the final option that you can explore, these are the governmentally funded programs that can place you and even pay you for a given number of years to be helping the department in the role of either associate professional or on-the-job trainee. For this, I'm not very sure that I can be of help, so please contact the relevant institutions to find out some more information. One piece of advice here, if you are applying to those institutions, please make sure that you clearly indicate your interest to be placed at the Department of Life Sciences and write in more specifically mention the area that you are interested in. So when we are searching for potential matches, then you can come up and we can consider you as well. Okay, so I'll be concentrating a little bit more on the programs that are available at DLS at the level of postgraduate studies. So many of you are just so happy with the structure of undergraduate education and you just want to continue in the same style, having very well structured program with a lot of courses and a little bit of a research component. So then, for those of you, master's programs are the best option. And at the Department of Life Sciences, we have two such programs. One is biodiversity conservation and sustainable development in the Caribbean. And the other program, this is biotechnology. So in a nutshell, these are internationally recognized. They are taught postgraduate degree programs. They have very well-structured content. And in addition to the courses, they allow like a semester of a project-related work. In addition, such programs can award you a postgraduate diploma if you are not interested to do the research project at the end. So usually the deadlines are in July, end of July. So you have plenty of time once you graduate to consider and explore further what are the courses, what are the job-related opportunities after you graduate, and then consider preparing your application and then submit it on time. So just looking very briefly at the information here, both programs are available as full-time and part-time. And what is important to mention is that going into the research project is only possible once you complete all the courses as per the requirements in the program. Okay, so now moving on to a little bit of a different aspect. So you had it enough, you had your coursework load, you finished, you don't want to go again into any exams, you don't want to see any lectures anymore for a while, and then this is another option for you. So there is a Japanese proverb that says it all: better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. So if you are this type of persons, then you can go ahead and pay attention on our Enfield PhD programs. So those programs will allow you to work a little bit more on the bench, set up experiments, optimize experimental settings, test your hypotheses, or alternatively, they'll provide you opportunity to go out in the field, collect samples, make surveys, contact with the local communities, and maybe you can have it even as a mixture of both. So currently, the Department of Life Sciences is offering the following specializations for such programs. And again, in a nutshell, I can summarize that these are research-based postgraduate degree programs. You can start working on your research project right after you are registered for the program, and then take out the courses as per the requirements while you are still doing your research. And eventually, in the case of the PhD program in particular, after you submit your thesis, you will be asked to defend it in front of audience, and particularly answering questions from the examiners. So now applications are usually accepted year-round, but the registration takes place only prior semester 1 or semester 2 in the relevant academic year. Looking again at the program at a glance, you can see that MPhil and PhD can be taken as full-time or part-time, especially if you are having a job at the same time. And these are the minimum numbers of years that you have to spend in the program in order to be eligible then to proceed for graduation. Apart from the courses, as you see here, there are requirements to deliver research seminars, and those are graded seminars. In addition, you continue to work on your thesis throughout the whole duration of your program. And as I mentioned, you have to defend it in the case of the PhD. Now, we have several examples in which an MPhil project can actually turn out to be quite promising and can be expanded further. So the student and the supervisor might wish to consider an upgrade. So there is a specialized procedure that the student should follow and then submit the project, the MPhil project, for examination. And then upon successfully answering the question of the examiners, those students can change their registration status. So I think now we move on to a question: how to apply for the MPhil and the PhD programs, and what is in it for me? So the process of application to the MPhil and PhD program can go in two different ways. As I mentioned before, you can have your own idea, and then, of course, searching through the department website, you potentially find supervisors who might be interested. You go ahead and discuss with them whether your project is feasible, whether you can get adequate funding, whether there is infrastructure available to start right away, and then you write a proposal and apply. Alternatively, you can contact potential supervisors and check with them if there are any vacancies available, if they have any projects already going on and they have the funding, and discuss which option of those will be best suitable for your long-term interests. Eventually, again, you write a proposal and apply. So now let's consider that you already got the good news from the graduate studies. You got the letter and it says, congratulations, you are accepted to our MPhil program. So what is next? Of course, you can start right away working on your project, or you can continue working if you started already during your undergraduate courses. But then you'll be eligible to compete for one of those postgraduate scholarships. They're very highly competitive, but they can cover a good number of years in your program financially. Additionally, you'll be entitled after 1 year of registration to write a grant proposal. Yes, your first grant proposal, which is different than coursework assignments. And then you submit it, and potentially the CRP grant will cover most of the expenses associated with your experiments. There are additional grants, as you see here, available for training abroad or participation in events such as conferences and meetings and sharing your results with the scientific community. Or finally, you can cover a publication cost. So added benefit will be that you'll be considered with priority for demonstrator places in the department, and you can help with the teaching at undergraduate level or also at the FST N1 program. So here is a summary of very helpful information. I strongly advise you to visit the departmental website and browse through the academic staff members' profiles to see their interests, what grants are available. And additionally, you can look at the wonderful profiles of our postgraduate students to understand also how they progress through their studies. For any particular questions related to the master's programs, please contact the program coordinators and visit their websites to be familiar with the course content and also get additional information and support. You can also check the postgraduate booklet, which is not mentioned on this slide. But for any MPhil PhD matters, please don't hesitate to contact me. And of course, as already Karishma mentioned, Graduate Studies website has a wealth of information about procedures, what to do, list of courses, programs, etc. So now, if you allow me just in the last minute or so, I would like to speak just very briefly about my research group and my interests. As it was mentioned already, the main topic I focus at the moment, this is isolation and characterization of biologically active compounds from amphibians, particularly frogs, and plants for development of therapeutic agents. It's quite of a challenge to perform such research here, but anyway, we managed so far. I'm supervising currently 3 postgraduate students, 2 MPhils and 1 PhD. One thesis already submitted and the other one is about to. So bottom line, there will be some new vacancies coming perhaps soon for postgraduate research students. I'll be adding some more research topics soon. I'm diversifying a little bit my research portfolio because I established some new collaborations as well. I have a new grant which is funded for work with scorpions. So please watch out for updates. And those of you who are interested can get in touch with me. And the last, of course, I would like to say that my students have it all. They're very happy sometimes when they receive prizes or awards at international meetings. They're happy when they pass their seminars successfully. They celebrate other occasions together, and I join them sometimes, of course. But there are times when everybody is very frustrated, very loaded, or stressed out, or orders are delayed, lack of access to research facilities on campus because of coronavirus. We have it all. So bottom line, I'll leave the next speaker today from our department, the Dr. Delezia Singh, the latest PhD holder from DLS, to speak a little bit more about that experience. But if you want to share with us all this spectrum of emotions, you are welcome to join the department. Don't hesitate to do it. We will go on the journey together. So thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, Dr. Mccasker, thank you so much for that wonderful and comprehensive presentation. As a student in the Department of Life Sciences, I also greatly benefit from all of it. So thank you so much. I see we have one question on the Facebook Live, and they ask, where can we see these updates, Dr. Mccasker? I think she's referring to with regards to vacancies opening for postgraduate studies.
Well, I believe that everyone has a very different style to advertise for vacancies. We usually, I mean, as a team leader, I usually kind of go sometimes word of mouth. I mean, sharing with my students to recommend or to share with their circle of friends first. And then I might post a formal invitation for people to just check with me or to inquire further. But I would advise, if anyone is interested in someone's research, they can directly send an email and mention that so they can get further specific feedback.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mccasker. I think that's all the questions that we have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So next we will have a presentation done by Dr. Nigel Jalsa. Dr. Jalsa did a double major in chemistry and biochemistry and a PhD in chemistry specializing in organic synthesis. His current research interests span the synthesis of biologically active small molecules, macromolecular chemistry, development of green solvents for organic reactions, and computational chemistry to aid in the understanding of biological processes and designing medicinally active compounds. He's also the chief examiner for the Trinidad and Tobago Chemistry Olympiad. I'll now pass you on to him.
Thank you very much, Amy, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to firstly thank the entire student body, postgraduate and undergraduates who have put together this important initiative. It is certainly a welcome event that would benefit any student who's interested in starting postgraduate studies and any student who is going to start postgraduate studies. So permit me to share my screen, please. Now, what I would say is that Dr. Mccasker did an excellent job of explaining and accounting for how you go about the registration process, the application for an MPhil PhD versus that of an MSc, the distinction between an MPhil PhD and that of an MSc, how to approach supervisors, how to decide on a project, etc. And those principles that she so eloquently expounded are applicable as well to the Department of Chemistry, as well as to the other departments in the faculty. In the Department of Chemistry, we have a diversity of lecturers who are interested in different research areas. So spanning the traditional areas of physical chemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, and analytical chemistry, you can find several individuals who are researching in those broad areas. And within each area, there are further specializations. So there would be specific types of physical chemistry, specific types of organic chemistry, etc. And the best way to go about deciding on what research topic that you want to do is, as Dr. Mccasker was indicating, to reach out to your potential supervisor whose area of interest, whose topic you are interested in, to begin a discussion on what projects they have available, on what their funding is available, and what positions and vacancies in their research groups are available for you to begin that step of advancing to the MPhil or PhD level. As life sciences, the Department of Chemistry also has an MSc, which is an MSc in Occupational and Environmental Safety and Health, and it is quite a popular MSc throughout the university. And as its name suggests, you are looking and examining factors that would allow you to become a safety specialist. So we do have the option of an MSc in Occupational and Environmental Safety and Health, and our other postgraduate programs are that fall under the research degree option, which is the MPhil and the PhD. So we have a range of topics and a range of individuals within the department that you can contact regarding your intended and prospective research. In addition to which, we are very much a well-equipped and well-stocked department from modern high-tech machinery. So we have NMR, we have ITC, we have DSC and AFM, etc. And what I always like to talk about, and if I would have taught you at the undergraduate level, you know that when I am teaching you physical chemistry 1, I always boast about the number of NMR machines that we have and the frequency of it. So we at the St. Augustine campus, we have 3 NMR machines, a 300, a 400, and a 600 megahertz NMR machine. And that really puts us in elite company compared to many other universities across the world. Yes, certainly there are universities that have more NMR machines than us. There are certainly universities that have higher frequency NMR machines than us. But we have NMR machines, and both in terms of number and frequency, that the majority of other universities throughout the world do not have. Many would tend to have only 1 NMR machine, while we have 3, and a particularly powerful 600 megahertz NMR machine with a cryoprobe. And these NMR machines are indispensable to the work of structural elucidation, particularly in my area of research, which is organic synthesis. So we are very much a well-tripped out department, and I am very proud of this fact. So I want to talk a little bit about my research. My research broadly could be described as synthetic and sustainable chemistry. And very often, organic synthesis does not go in line with sustainability. Organic chemists are famous for creating a lot of toxic and polluting byproducts in the course of our reactions. And there's a concerted effort globally to change that, or at least and to minimize that impact. And I'll be talking about some of the research that has been undertaken within my group to that extent. Now, particularly in the field of synthetic chemistry, I am concerned with carbohydrate chemistry. Not only, but it is a big portion of my research, which is shown here. Now, if you think about carbohydrates, the first thing that is going to come to your mind is likely food groups. So glucose, sucrose, etc. is what you're going to think about. And that is the typical perception of what carbohydrates are regarded to be important for, something that you eat. But the fact of the matter is that carbohydrates have implications in virtually every biological sphere that you could think of, both in terms of the biological processes that are responsible for life, as well as the development of vaccines, the development of drugs, the infection of healthy human cells by a pathogen, etc. So the first vaccine against Haemophilus influenzae B, which was a disease that used to kill hundreds of thousands of toddlers across the world every year, was a vaccine was created, and it is a carbohydrate-based vaccine that has significantly reduced the mortality rate of toddlers to HIV. There are vaccine candidates in phase 3 trials that are being developed for the treatment of breast cancer, prostate cancer, etc. There are drugs that are utilized for the treatment of influenza. The binding of the SARS-CoV-2 virus to a healthy human cell is actually a carbohydrate-mediated process. So this is on the screen here, the COVID virus, and this ACE2 receptor is on the healthy human cell. And this point of interaction here, that the first point of interaction is a carbohydrate on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus binding to a receptor on the healthy human cell. And there are implications for that from a prophylactic perspective and from a treatment perspective. So carbohydrates, so hopefully if you remember one thing from my small talk today, is that carbohydrates are not only important for eating. Now, this then brings me to my research, that we synthesize small molecules that are carbohydrate-based molecules. In this case here, we are looking at medicinally active molecules. We are looking at developing different protecting groups, being able to join carbohydrates together in a precise and specific manner, which is a problem inherent to carbohydrates because of their polyfunctional and polyhydroxylated nature. So this molecule that I've shown here, which is a carbohydrate-based structure, and it has two CF3 groups, two fluorine centers there. We recently published this, well, recently as being last year, that we published this, and it had excellent adjuvant activity against a range of important bacteria, a range of important pathogenic bacteria to humans. So this was something that we were pretty proud of, being able to synthesize this carbohydrate-based phosphoramidate derivative. And next piece of work that we published was supramolecular chemistry, as its name suggests, involve large complex molecules. And this class of compound are what you call cyclodextrins. And you could see inside here is a cavity that can bind molecules, and these cyclodextrins, therefore, what they can be utilized for is to bind small molecules and to deliver them to their particular target or their particular area. You may or may not know that cyclodextrins are a common feature in detergents, in perfumes, etc., to facilitate control, sustained release of the payload. And it is a similar concept that is being utilized in medicinal chemistry. So I know the structures are maybe particularly small, but this was another novel analog that we had synthesized of a phosphoamidate derivative of these cyclodextrins. In terms of green chemistry, we are looking at developing dimethyl ether. Now, dimethyl ether is a potential clean solvent, and it is, you may or may not know that it is being produced by a plant in Trinidad and Tobago, Caribbean Gas Chemicals Limited, which is a collaboration with a Japanese company. And the dimethyl ether is being examined because not only can it be produced from a biological origin, but it is also considered to be much more benign than traditional organic solvents. And we have done work, and we've published work examining the utility of dimethyl ether as a replacement for the traditional toxic and noxious solvents that are often employed and required in organic chemistry, such as dichloromethane. And we've gotten good results on this so far. An area of research that I have also begun, which is not something that I did at the beginning of my career, but I have become interested in it over the last 2 years, is computational chemistry, specifically molecular docking and molecular dynamic simulation studies, where we and this is really wide-ranging, but we can model the behavior of a ligand in a protein. We can model the behavior of an ion pore in a lipid bilayer membrane. We can model behavior of absorption of a particular compound on a neck surface. We can look at the modeling of trapping of carbon dioxide by ionic liquids, etc. And I am looking forward to a high performance computing unit coming maybe in 2 months' time that would really allow us to accelerate the rate at which we are doing this research. So this is just an example here of what molecular dynamic simulations is, that you start off very simply, which is a protein ligand that you're looking at. You enclose it in a box, and then you do a variety of trajectory runs, and then you begin to analyze the results for their stability, etc. This research is not done in isolation. Very, very few cutting-edge research will be done in isolation. So you can't, a single individual cannot be expected to do really groundbreaking research. And for this, therefore, I have to thank my team of collaborators. Dr. Afraj Subrati, he was my PhD student who graduated last year, and he has been responsible for 13 publications spanning the range of areas that I have just discussed. Dr. Laurali Lalji is a lecturer in physical chemistry, and as a synthetic chemist, the provision of physical chemistry skills are indispensable to have an element and an approach to my research that simply is not something that can easily be done by a classically trained organic chemist. Professor Fran Curtin from the Memorial University of Newfoundland, she and I collaborate on green chemistry research, and Professor Babu Chowdhury from the University of Greenwich, we collaborate on other types of synthetic chemistry research. Now, what I want is to briefly give some advice for incoming postgraduate students. The first thing that I think you should do is ask yourself, what is your reason for pursuing postgraduate studies? Is it that you are passionate about research, or is it something else? And that something else is going to determine really if you go ahead and pursue postgraduate research. If the reason for you pursuing postgraduate research is because you have nothing else to do, I would suggest that that may not be the best reason to pursue postgraduate research. Postgraduate research is more times than not a labor of love, that it requires a lot of work, it requires a lot of long hours, it requires a lot of frustration. As a PhD student, out of every 11 reactions, I did only one worked. So 10 out of my every 11 reactions I did not work. And if you are doing postgrad for any other reason than you have a passion for it, and you have a passion for new knowledge and developing something new, then you will very often find that when you run into the inevitable wall that is a part of all postgraduate research, that you are going to become disillusioned. Being disappointed is one thing. Being upset that your reactions don't work is certainly part and parcel of the postgrad experience, as well as being frustrated. But if you remember why you're doing postgrad, and you're doing postgrad for the right reason, you would eventually be able to overcome and surmount those challenges. If you are unsure about postgrad, what should you do? Well, you can select to do a final year project in a particular area with a particular supervisor you may be interested in. You may choose to ask if that supervisor may take you for the summer period, so you can get a feel of what his or her lab is like. And that really, I mean, when I started postgrad, I myself wasn't even too sure if I wanted to do postgrad. I know that I was interested in research, and I knew that I wanted to do research. And I think that it was one of those things that I said, all right, let me start, given that I know that at some point I want to do research, and it is not a decision that I have regretted. And I would say that choosing to do postgraduate research, and equivalent to that, is that choosing your supervisor and your project is one of the most important decisions you will make. Do not choose postgraduate research and do not choose a supervisor and you do not like that particular project or do not choose a particular project, but you cannot work with that particular supervisor. Everybody has their own personality. So those are very important things that you should consider when you are electing to pursue postgraduate research. Another thing that I would bring to the attention of those particularly who are interested in pursuing MPhil or PhD studies is that there's an opportunity for international travel. There is some element of funding. You will have to provide very likely some personal funding on your own part, but you should take the opportunity where it presents itself at the postgraduate level to attend and present your work at international conferences. Apart from it being a change of scenery, apart from it being a welcome vacation, for want of a better word, it allows you to interact with leaders in your field. It allows you to network and to build contacts that would very often serve you well as you progress through your career. Now, what is the difference between undergraduate and postgraduate research? Very often, I am sure you would have heard that there's a big gulf between CSEC and CAPE, and you would have heard that there's a big gulf between CAPE and university. I would tell you that there is an even bigger gulf between undergraduate studies and postgraduate studies. You are required, particularly if you are doing an MPhil or PhD, to be doing independent research. Depending on the type of research project, a lot of it will be significantly unknown. Now, certain types of projects may follow a linear path, but other types of projects are certainly open to a lot of mayhem, for want of a better word, and you would have to decide whether that type of approach and those type of projects are actually suitable for you, in terms of what you find attractive and what you consider to be challenging and suitable for you. And very often you'd find yourself, unlike a typical 8 to 4, 9 to 5 job, very often you may find yourself needing to work greater than 40 hours, a typical 40-hour work week, which involves not only demonstrating duties, not only research in the lab, but also to keeping up to date with the literature. So reading recent articles and published articles, etc. Now, I would like to leave you with a small picture of a portion of my research group. I want you to, I don't want you to particularly focus on the cluttered glassware. I want you to focus on this here. This was put up in my research group by now Dr. Afrad Subrati when he started his postgrad studies, very early into his postgrad studies, and it encapsulates the philosophy of my research group to research. And if you can't see it, I'll read it for you. If we knew what it is we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? So that really is an embodiment of the philosophy of my research, that we really don't know what is going to be the outcome when we start the journey. Everything looks good on paper, but what we do know is that what we are in for quite an enjoyable and exciting ride. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank all of you in attendance here and all of you viewing this presentation at a later date for your interest in pursuing postgraduate studies at the Faculty of Science and Technology. Thank you very much, and back to you, Ms. Ramdas.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Jalsa, for your presentation. We have one question from Facebook. Celeste, she asks, if I have an interest in drug development, but did a double major in biology and biochemistry, would you recommend a postgraduate degree in the chemistry department?
So thank you very much, Ivy. I would say to Celeste that drug development is a wide topic, right? That is a big expansive area. And drug development could span the range of computer simulations. It could span the range of actually synthesizing a potentially active molecule. It could span the range of improving on the development of improving on the delivery of a particular drug molecule to its target site. And it could also involve understanding the pathway that you are trying to get the drug to develop. So that could either be a biochemistry type project, or it could be a chemistry type project. So it really depends on what aspect of drug development that you are interested in.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Giles, for clarifying that. We also got an additional question that was submitted prior to this event. And this question reads, if your research at a postgraduate level yields something novel, what is the process to patent it? And will the university guide you in the process of patenting your new research?
That is absolutely right. What I would say is that when you the university has a unit that is specialized and to assist with the intellectual property and the patenting process, and they would lead the researcher or the research team through the process. From the university does have a dedicated office towards both filing a patent as well as the commercialization of that research if it becomes necessary.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jalsa. And thank you once again for your really good presentation. We all appreciated it. And I'm sure that Jeremiah will agree that it was very interesting seeing that he's also a student for the Department of Chemistry. I'll now pass you on to him. Jeremiah, you're muted.
Thank you so much, Amy Ramblat and others, and really insightful presentations from Dr. Mccasker and Dr. Jalsa. I just want to just say that the statement and the notion that our undergraduate students, would like to continue the undergraduate research is a very important one, because we see some of the final year projects being produced at the undergraduate level are very good, promising areas of research. And I personally would like to encourage members who would like to further that research to the MPhil level and postgrad and whatnot. So thank you, Dr. Jalsa, for an excellent presentation. Next, we will have, yes, next we will have a presentation from Dr. David Tweedle. Dr. David Tweedle is a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics here at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. He obtained his PhD in the year of 2011 at the University of Waterloo for his research, and he likes to investigate the arithmetic similarities between Enfield modules and elliptic curves. So I welcome Dr. David Tweedle to the fore.
Thank you. Just a moment while I share my screen. Okay, thank you, Jeremiah, for that introduction. I appreciate that. Also want to thank the FST Postgrad Guild for inviting me to speak. Also, I should thank my predecessors, Dr. Mccasker, Dr. Jalsa, for some very helpful information and advice. Particular, anyone in you were listening during that, because a lot of it, like more generally, than just life sciences or chemistry. Okay, one thing that's something awful. I'll try my best to adjust. Okay. One that's specific that the Department of Math and Stats is only offering the MSc part-time at this time, so not there's no full-time option for the MSc, either stats.
I think we experienced a bit of technical difficulties.
Okay, how is that?
still a bit muffled.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'll just try my best. Go
Okay,
a little bit
excellent.
slower.
Perfect. Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's hope for the best here. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention we're only offering the part-time programs for MSc. So, you know, any prospective students, keep that in mind. I also wanted to mention a few of the, you know, I'll be mainly speaking about my own research, but I'll just briefly mention, you know, in the math department, we have a wide array of topics. Like you can study in applied math, you can study math modeling or fluid dynamics. Okay, for example, you can study combinatorics. And of course we have, you know, you can study statistics. I mean, you know, and then for me, well, there's number theory. Okay. So that's my area of research is number theory. More specifically, I like to look at certain algebraic structures and then how they behave, something called modulo P. Okay. I'll just briefly speak about that. Okay. One classical example comes from looking at the decimal expansions of, you know, of fractions 1 over p, where p is prime. Okay, so for example, you can look at the decimal expansion of 1/7. Okay, if you plug in 1 divided by 7 in your calculator, this is what comes up, right? Repeating decimal with you know, 6 repeating digits. Okay. Of course, and then you might look at, you know, the expansion of 1/11. Okay, and that only has 2 digits repeating. Okay, fine. Then you look at 1 over 13, and that has 6 digits. All right, and then you decide, you know, you decide to look at the decimal expansion for 1 over 17. 1 over 17, and you see 16 digits. And then, you know, if you're a mathematician, you see, hey, what's going on there? Right? You know, you want to know more about it. You know, in the days where people first starting this problem, you know, we didn't have computers, but now I plugged in, you know, this, I just looked at the decimal expansion of 1 over 131, which is a prime number, and it comes out to be 130 digits. Okay, so now you must be thinking, well, you know, what's going on there? Okay. And this problem, you know, is it turns out to be related to, you know, certain equations and how you reduce them modulo P. Okay. It turns out that the length of this repeating decimal, called the period, is a divisor of p minus 1 when p is prime. So, you know, these numbers, like, that wasn't a coincidence, you know, like the period of 1 over 7, the fact that it's 6, we kind of expected to be something like that because 6 is a divisor of 7 minus 1, which is 6. Okay. And so, you know, all of these things, they always divide p minus 1, but you notice like a few of them I posted are exactly p minus 1. Okay, and then you know, people in the past, like Gauss and Artin, they said to themselves, like, shouldn't it be that you know, for for infinitely many, shouldn't this happen infinitely often, that the expansion, the decimal expansion of 1 over p is as long as it can be, which is of length p minus 1. And it turns out to study this problem, it's just a happy coincidence. It happens to be related to studying the problem of whether or not, you look at the powers of 10 modulo p. Okay, 10 being the base that you expand your fraction in. Okay. For example, if you look at the powers of 10 modulo 7, modulo 7 means we just throw away multiples of 7. So for example, we look at 10, that's really 3 modulo 7, well, because you throw away one of the 7s in there. Okay, what about 10 squared? Well, that's really 2, because when I throw away however many 7s I want, I can throw away 98 is a multiple of 7, so I take 98 away from 100, I get 2 left over. Okay, so if I look at 10, 10 squared, 10 cubed, 10 to the 4th, 10 to the 5th, and 10 to the 6th, these are all different, and they give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Telling us I have 6 different powers. That somehow tells us that the length of my my repeating part of my fraction is going to be of length 6. Okay. And so kind of investigating these kind of questions, mod p, is what allows us to solve this problem of these fractions. I'll say a little bit more about that if I have time. Right. The study of this this kind of property combines a kind of something known as analytic number theory and algebraic number theory. In particular, we have this powerful tool known as the Chabatara density theorem, which allows us to study densities of certain prime numbers. Okay. And how we do that is we take the equation x to the n equals a, or for our example that we would study, the equation x to the n equals 10, and we reduce it mod p and study its properties. Okay, but we don't have to even stop there. We can take other equations, modulo p, and study their properties. For example, use just like a simple cubic equation. So the equation y squared equals x cubed minus x. You can take a prime number, like maybe 131, and reduce it and study like how many solutions are there to that equation, and so on. Okay. And just a few words. I want to invite you to come and study with me if you're interested, to learn about kind of what happens next with all the math you've studied in your undergrad, and maybe you might be interested in what is happening in number theory these days. You might know from, say, elementary number theory, like what happened 200 or 300 years ago, but certainly it's also interesting to study what's going on now. So I invite you to, if you're interested, come and talk to me or send me an email. Oh, I see a question. I now see a question. Sorry. Okay, there's a question. Does the Math and Stats department currently offer internships? We have associate professionals working with the department currently. That is a program offered through the government somehow. So probably if you want to know more, you can send me an email and I'll try and find out more details for you on how that is all working. Let's see. And I just want to end by, thanking you all for coming and listening to this presentation. Oh, and if there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So if there are no more questions, thank you, Dr. Tweedle. I just want to respond to Nicholas's very important, but well, no one said Nicholas, well, inadvertently Nicholas's question, but to the response of Dr. Tweedle. So the AP program is a program offered to the national scholars who would have been awarded a government scholarship. So if students or viewers would have been awarded a national scholarship or a bursary, a national bursary, which would have started recently, and they finished their degree programs and such, you can go on the scholarship, the SATD website, and that website would basically give you all the details concerning the associate professional program, how to apply, and you can also, those who have scholarship officers can also liaise with them, and they can also give you much needed assistance. But the AP program or persons would have been awarded GORTT scholarships at the Cape level or any other scholarships that were available. So I hope that does clarify the yes. Thank you so much. So sorry about that. Sorry about that. We're just getting the calls. So thank you, Dr. Tweedle, for your in-depth and very informative presentation. Okay. And hold on. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Nicholas Mendes. Nicholas Mendes is a computer science instructor, software consultant, and organizer of the Google Developer Groups in Port of Spain. Passionate in all things web, he has seen success in various regional hackathons. One was actually hosted by the FST Student Council last year under the Michael Joseph administration, by the way. And he is a decorated author on the Div2 platform. He holds a master's in computer science from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. He currently teaches software engineering and web technologies and oversees various software projects undertaken by the department. I will now pass you on to Mr. Nicholas Mendes for his.
Hello. Thank you very much for that, Jeremiah. Good day, everyone. Lecturers, instructors, colleagues, and of course, the students. Very happy to be here. I'm gonna go right into my presentation and share my screen. Right, so today, I'm just going to give my time, Nicholas Mendes. As Jeremiah said, I'm an instructor in the department, and I'm just going to talk about what postgrad is kind of like in the DCIT. I know the event is kind of separate into, first is the department talks and like the student experience, but my presentation is a little different. I kind of have them kind of interwoven, so you would see a lot of pictures, kind of going back and forth between my personal experience in postgrad. So just a bit about me again. So, I'm a very, as you can see, a young staff member, a recent staff member. I've been teaching at UE as early as 2015 in the capacity of a tutor. So I would be there in the labs doing demonstration. I'd have tutored in the Department of Computing and IT and Department of Electrical and Electrical Computing. And then I did my master's in 2016, and my research area was in information retrieval. I will get a bit more into that as the presentation goes on. I finished my master's in 2019, and right out of master's, I began instructing full-time in department in courses of software engineering, web technologies, platform technologies, and a couple of others. As Jeremiah said, I'm an organizer at one of the Google community programs run in the region called Google Developer Group Port of Spain. And I also do a bit of blogging on the Dev2 platform. So why pursue postgraduate studies? Well, in general, in any postgraduate degree, there are a number of benefits that are awarded to you. So of course, it's the idea of career advancement, increase earning potential, improving your hireability, better preparing you for lifelong learning, and enhancing your professional network, as well as gaining specialized knowledge. So these days, the university graduates hundreds of students every year, and they're all being sent out to the job market. And they will have to compete with themselves, but not only that, students of the previous years. So the question is, how do you stand out against the crowd? Well, a postgraduate degree is a really nice way to do so. So I'll talk a bit about my postgraduate experience, or the postgraduate experience in general. It's one of the, I think is one of the most beneficial experience parts of the postgraduate degree, right? Again, you get to build relationships with alumni. So when you interact with with other alumni who would have done either program, maybe you recognize it from undergrad, or maybe you would bounce up people from other programs, and you get a mix of perspective and ideas. Your fellow postgraduate students, you'll form special relationships with staff, because as a postgraduate student, they give you special opportunities, and their engagements that are really specific to that dynamic of postgraduate studies, and of course the industry professionals as well. So in terms of postgraduate opportunities, there are special events, scholarships and grants, opportunities for undergraduate student mentorship. So I know in the department, we have different touch points in which we can get postgraduate students engaged with undergraduate students, one of which is our yearly boot camp, where we have our mentors, we have programming competitions. I'll speak more about that later on. Of course, we have internships as well, and research and industry projects. So very often in the department will go after projects, whether it's for scientific research or just collaborations within industry. And very often we will need students to be part of our development teams, the software engineering team, or the scientific research teams. No matter where the case may be, there's always going to be a space available, whether you're at the undergraduate level or the postgraduate level. So here at the side here, just a couple of memorable moments for my times in postgrad. A big part of the FST postgrad experience, I must say, is the Postgraduate Launch. I know some people will recognize them from the pictures. It's a place that we have 24-hour access to as a postgraduate student, and you'd spend many nights here and days, kind of burning the midnight oil, making sure your assignments are done. So another thing that's really special about our department being in tech, is the opportunities to take part in these international, local, and regional hackathons, tech conferences, workshops, and events. There's always something going on. The last one I took part in would have been in the B-Mobile Connect Code Challenge, and that had a really nice prize attached to it. It was a really wonderful experience. And the whole idea is to come together and bring technology and work with technology, work with stakeholders, and develop a solution in a very limited time span. So it's very fun. You got to meet new people, you got to create new connections. And it's always nice to go up on a stage and kind of pitch your idea, get the feedback from the judges and the crowd. So we have seen some success in some of these things. There are opportunities in undergraduate, but those opportunities also continue in postgraduates as well. So of course, research. So whether you're doing a postgraduate degree, which is more research-based, of course, the opportunities are largely there. But if you're doing an MSc like me, there is an opportunity for doing research. Most master's MSc programs will have a final year project, and you can choose to try your work or try a problem in the global, as a contribution in the global body of knowledge in a particular scientific topic. So I was lucky enough to get my first and only research work accepted into what we call the Special Interest Group for Information Retrieval. It was a conference held by one of the foremost computing authorities in computer science called the ACM. It was held in Paris, France, and we was able to apply for grants and actually get some funding to actually fly me over to Paris and present my work there. So it was a really wonderful experience, and you'll be really surprised to see how much partying these scientists people would actually engage in. So a conference is really a wonderful event that I would encourage people to try to publish some work too, because you can engage in peer review research. You kind of get to see and appreciate that scientific process up close, and you get to meet people from across the world. So I also have a really interesting perspective on this. I sit on what we call the curriculum review committee. So we also engage industry into what they want. So I thought I'll just spend a minute or two talking about, well, what is the industry really valuing from our graduates? I'll say specifically in the DCIT, right? So we have a number of insights, but I really wanted to just point out one mainly today. When we survey our stakeholders in terms of additional experience, they seem to really favor participation in international and regional coding competitions. So yes, as an academic, as an academic, I must encourage students to always, prioritize their grades. But at the same time, that's just really not enough in today's job space. The industry very much wants to see well-rounded individuals who take part in extracurricular activities, individuals who can show innovation, teamwork, communication skills, and the innovative skills into play into these kind of events, right? So that's why you're going to see them really favoring their academic or graduates who are taking part, who's able to do that a little bit extra. Those who want to get involved in student clubs, industry-based internships, releasing open source software, or participating in international events or local events as well. So that's really something I really wanted to depart to students or perspectives. And I do realize in this time, in the post-COVID or in the COVID era, there's a very limited opportunity for this. So as you see, school is kind of opening back up, opportunities are going to start to resurface. Maybe you can get a second shot in your postgraduate degree. So I would argue that the connections that you make in university is almost as important as the actual degree that you get out, because they allow you to really expand and really reach for those opportunities that you're looking for. So when it comes to postgraduate studies in the Department of Computer and IT, what are the options that are available? So you have several paths. You can start with the research-based approach, is the Masters of Philosophy, Computer Science. As I said, it's research-based and it's kind of seen as a stepping stone to getting on to your PhD, right? If you want to go more into industry, you can look at the Masters of Science. That's what MSc stands for. And we have two programs right now, although I believe the computer science program might not be offered next year because they're going under revision. We still have the very popular, that's really growing in popularity, the data science program. And the really interesting thing about the data science program is that we're seeing graduates from other departments coming in, because it provides a lot of entry points. It kind of makes postgraduate computing a little bit more accessible for those who may be from other disciplines. So we're seeing people from maths and stats, people from engineering, from all over the departments, SOCI as well, actually coming into this data science program. And data science is basically about promoting data-driven decisions for making decision-making programming and applying analytics techniques like artificial intelligence and machine learning for driving, very smart and analytical decision-making and innovation and optimization within the industry. So that's about it I have for this presentation. Try to keep it really brief. So the question I have for you all to think about, what's next for the future? What would you like to see yourself, and how is your path, or how do you see yourself shaping your path to get the outcomes that you want? So that's it for today for me, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Okay. Excellent presentation, Mr. Mendes. I don't think we have any questions, so we can go straight on to the other. Well, okay, so thank you, Mr. Mendes, for your presentation. We will now have a brief Q&A session. Well, I didn't see any questions, so I think I could go straight to Amy Ramdass, who will take us on to the next speaker. Amy?
Thank you, Jeremiah. So for the next portion of this event, we'll be discussing the postgraduate experience, and we'll have presentations regarding the student experience at the postgraduate level. And through these presentations, you'll be given insight on what postgraduate studies are like by current or recently graduated students, as well as advice on how you could excel at a postgraduate level. So our first presentation will be done by Dr. Delizia Singh. Dr. Delizia Singh is currently a lecturer in ecotoxicology for the Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainable Development in the Caribbean MSc program at DLS at UWI. Dr. Singh obtained her Bachelor's of Science with first-class honors and her PhD doctorate with high commendation at the UWI St. Augustine campus. She has volunteered for a number of NGOs, along with being the recipient of grants and awards inclusive of the Dean's Honor Roll and the UWI Postgraduate Scholarship. She has been identified as a young scientist with tremendous academic and leadership potential, having held many chief roles, including postgraduate representative for the Department of Life Sciences, executive faculty lead of Science and Technology for Student Energy UWI chapter, and a member of the winning team that won the Student Energy Chapter's Day Climate Hackathon in London 2019. Her doctoral research examined the effects of pesticides on non-target biota, specifically freshwater crabs. She utilizes her thesis research on pesticides as an educational platform for tackling a broader societal issue, which is the harmful impacts of pesticides on environmental and human health. I will now pass you on to her.
Thank you so much, Amy. Just doing a sound check because my Wi-Fi is really dodgy, but can you hear me? I hope my volume is good, right?
Yes, sounds good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sivan. So I just want to start off very briefly, before I share my screen, to basically express my thanks to Amy for inviting me, as well as Jeremiah and Sivan from the Student Council, as well as the Guild represented here. And I want to thank my colleagues, peers, lecturers, for giving this really good advice. And I think this session is really, really important for those who are interested in the postgraduate, the whole life and the postgraduate realm, right? So let me jump straight into my presentation. Let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second or two. There we go, and let's hope be good. Okay, great. Okay, so I don't want to put too much emphasis in talking about like how do you go about applying for postgraduate programs, because I think all of the speakers that went before me would have touched on that, right? So my take on it would really be sharing my experiences as a postgraduate, specifically in DLS, which is Department of Life Sciences. So thank you, Dr. Mccasker, for that little PR there at the end of your session. Thank you so much. So I would take you through today's presentation, mainly from my angle and my point of view, well, my experience at least. So you can gauge if you want to, this is something that you want to jump into. And of course, we would strongly encourage it, as Dr. Jalsa said, if you like research, if you want something to excite you, you have a career that you're thinking about, we have all of the options available, right? So I'm just going to introduce you a little bit to my postgraduate journey. I'm not going to talk too much about it on this side, right? Because this really is just what you see as we call the CV skeleton, right? When you see it on the CV, okay, yes, it's all academics. Sometimes they say, academics, you need to focus on it as it's important. But you also, the reason why I have these pictures here on the right-hand side would be reminders to encourage you when you do start your postgraduate program and you get settled in, this is a reminder, and these pictures show you that there are a lot of experiences that you're going to get in addition to your focus on your curriculum, on your research, whether it's a taught program or whether it's a research-based program. And these all represent opportunities that I actually had as a postgraduate, and I was so humbled and honored to be able to, participate in some of these. So, besides, my MPhil and my upgrade to the PhD, right, having submitted in 2020 and defended in 2021, right? But, you know, throughout that, I got involved. So if you look at the top left, you know, that's, yes, top left, you know, that's me in my contribution, next to my contribution for the FAO roaming art initiative, where they wanted to showcase the biodiversity of Trinidad and Tobago. Below would be me in a FAO workshop. Of course, all of this is volunteer based, right? Because, you know, that's how you start off, but that's how you learn to give back, right? When you start off as a budding scientist, when you start off as a budding academic, and, you know, you're postgraduate, you also have to not only get involved in activities, but you should give back, right? So that was my contribution to community. So I've been volunteering with them to train farmers in workshops. And this in particular was in my area of expertise, which would have been pesticide detection. That was some quick pesticide residue detection testing going on there. And top of my, especially, this is just one of the many you know, conferences that I've attended that I had some great moments. And as my peer and colleague, Nicholas, Mr. Mendes mentioned, that, you know, the more conferences that you go to, the more you can network, the more you can meet other individuals and learn of their experiences, and open up yourselves to cross collaboration as well as a postgraduate, right? So this is really like, I really had to put this moment, because every time I see it, I smile. And this is, I was very humbled and honored to be on the winning team for the climate hackathon. And we, as you can see, there was a mixture of you know, people from different areas and regions. It was not only Trinidad and Tobago that was represented there. You know, we have this was Mexico, Argentina, Africa, Hungary, Chile. You know, and this particular summit had over I kid you not, over 600 representatives. And there were representatives from 300 countries internationally. So that's the kind of networking. And I like this picture because we are all friends now, right? And we still keep in contact. But it's just a great experience, right? And below, that's me doing some outreach work representing DLS. Again, the FST does a lot of outreach activities to engage you know, young adults, high school students. We would go to different high schools and we would teach them about, you know, inform them about our programs, encourage them, excite them, let them know what we have in our different departments. So this is one of the occasions, and you know, I'm going to boast about it because I'm so proud of our museum, right? But those are specimens from the Zoology Museum that we host, our department hosts, and those are some lovely specimens. Of course, as you can see, that's a lovely piece of snakeskin there, and that, you know, drew a lot of attention there, right? So that's really what I wanted to give you some advice here. Do not only focus on your academics, because there's a lot of other activities that you can do to build yourself as an individual, as an academic, all throughout your postgraduate journey. Okay, so I'm not going to try to take too long, but the rest of my presentation, I like to engage my audience, right? Everybody knows when I give presentations, I like it to be fun, and I like it to be engaging, and I like it to be constructive and useful to the audience. So to the undergraduates listening, to the freshers, the postgraduate freshers, the upcoming postgraduate students, I would like to invite you. For each of my slides, I have a question at the top of it, and I'm going to explain my experiences. I answer any questions because I felt this was very relevant, because I was asked these questions in 2020 when I submitted my thesis for an interview. And it really made me put things into perspective, which I think is going to be great for you as well. So I invite you to write the questions down and share your feedback. You may not have questions on, my particular area of research, but I want to encourage you on the Facebook or, wherever you're looking at this presentation to write the questions down. Maybe if you've experienced some of these things already, shoot some feedback out. The hosts will share them. And if you don't have anything to contribute to the questions right now, write them down and keep them in a safe place. Because in years to come, when you started your program, your postgraduate program, these questions are going to be very important to you. It's good to gauge where you are, and it's good to gauge who you are and what you've done based on these questions. Okay, so it's really good to keep them handy. So I want to start off with this question. It's going to be something, it's going to be a bread and butter question, because everywhere you go, from my experience, everywhere you go, people are going to ask you this question, right? What is your research about? Right now, if you have gone to training workshops with work and networking, there's the really nifty LinkedIn. I learned this from LinkedIn when they came to one of the conferences. The producers of and platform creators of LinkedIn, they taught us the 60-second rule. Now, this is something that you need to master. It's not going to come overnight, so don't get scared, right? But really, they tell you when you're networking, try to sum up what you do in 60 seconds. It's not as easy as you think, and 60 seconds goes really quickly. But in the meantime, though, it's always good to just kind of put together what would you like to do, or what do you like to do? And your research does not mean, being asked this question doesn't mean that you have to be doing a research-based degree. You could also be doing a taught program, because in all of these programs, right, you're going to encounter research projects, and you're going to encounter some form of research, whatever department it is, right? So it's good to know your research, right? So just a little background, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, right? But I looked for my doctoral thesis, and, MPhil upgraded to PhD. I looked at the effects of, pesticide exposure on a local indigenous crab species, Popiana dentata. And if you haven't figured it out already, with all the pictures of crabs, I love crabs. I'm obsessed with them. I'm passionate about them. And you get that from every little thing I talk about them if you've met me, right? I was very lucky to be able to look at a local species, and I looked at all of these aspects here. So there was the physiological responses I looked at from pesticide exposure, which was cardiac. I looked at heart rate. Biochemical was enzyme inhibition. Molecular, I worked with RNA and transcriptomics. So I do have experience in bioinformatics as well. And I also looked at the effects on growth and behavior, right? So it was really something very mechanistic, and I enjoyed it. But I'll share a little bit about, it's a double-edged sword when you start your postgraduate program. We're not here to scare you, but we are here to prepare you mentally when you do start your program. It's not sure, it's fabulous, going around saying, I'm doing my master's, or I'm doing my MPhil, my PhD. It's fabulous. Okay, great. But there are some sides to it that you need to also be aware of as well. Okay, so second question, how did I go about managing my time? Now, I put this up very early because this is something that a lot of people have asked me, because I was involved in a number of activities. And people always ask me, why haven't you gone crazy? Why haven't you pulled out of all of your hair? How do you manage your time, right? And I will answer in the same way I've told my peers and persons who asked me. Time management, even at my time, it's something that it's going to take years to master it. I wouldn't say years, but there's no hard and fast rule. And no one says that after 2 months, you're going to manage time well, okay? But it is going to be something that you need to work on when you start your postgraduate program. Time management is very, very important, especially if you're going to put in different activities in your schedule, right? As I said, I encourage you to do that, right? In addition to the academics, okay? But you have to sort of have a master of all the things on your plate, right? Now, It does not mean that as soon as you start, you're going to be, okay, great, or it's working on great, or on the other side of the coin, you're going to freak out and say, I can't master time, I don't know what's going on. It's not an easy thing, and it comes with experience. But one of the most important things to note, right, is that there are many techniques out there, of course, by experts. Do some research, look at what's published, go to, scientific forums and websites, and, have a look at what are the techniques that they recommend, okay? And you choose what works for you. This is very important, right? Because what I would do would not necessarily work for you. And it really does match up with personalities as well, too. Because I'm sure if you look at my last point there with my method, some of you might, say, that's definitely not going to work for me. All right. So, it really is what works for you. Okay. So my method I'm going to share a little bit is, generally I, being the postgraduate rep for a couple of years, right? I would usually dedicate a certain period of time each day for answering emails, for sorting out issues in the lab. Because remember, you have your postgraduate, fellow postgraduates are going to come to you and they're going to tell you, we have little, feedback or maybe comments or maybe some, issues we want dealt with, right? So I would dedicate a specific time of the day to do specific tasks and focus on only that. So even though, let's say I have a meeting to prep for my supervisor tomorrow, within that hour, within that half an hour, I'm just focusing on the emails or whatever item I would have allocated to that. Now, that's a bit of a difficult thing. It took me a while to master that, right? As I said, nobody's perfect, and it's not it's not a hard or fast rule, right? But again, some people might say, I can't do that, right? I will go crazy. So do what works for you. And of course, ideally, we always say we have a lot of things on our plate, right? And we're not going to procrastinate. We're not going to get distracted with whatever, series is going on, or perhaps even a seminar. And nothing is wrong with attending seminars, by the way. You really should, but you're going to say, I'm not going to procrastinate, I'm going to get my work done. And then in reality, you might find yourself, and I'm sure in undergrad, you've experienced this as well, that, it doesn't work like that, right? So time management, very important to work on and focus on, especially if you're going to transition into the postgraduate, degrees and this whole postgraduate life, right? So another one of my questions, right, was what were some of the challenges and or obstacles that I faced? Now, this is a very good question, and it really brings home what Dr. Jalsa mentioned about, I think he mentioned it, and I was so happy to hear that, about his experiments, right? Because, in reality, if any postgraduate comes up to you and tells you, I've had amazing experiments, they all work out. Nope, I would not say that's true. And many of my postgraduate fellows, especially myself as well, we all would have experienced, failed experiments, and I've had many. All right, so in my areas, I'm talking about from my experience in DLS, I had a lot of field work. My experiments involved living organisms. Okay, so I looked at crabs. Crabs take their cues from seasonality and the changeovers from the dry to the wet season. And that was my Achilles heel, I have to tell you, okay? Because there were many times when I would go out in the field, and if there was a prolonged dry period when it should have rain in the rainy season, the crabs would simply not be out. They would also take cues for breeding and for mating, for making their babies, for hatching their babies and so forth from these different environmental and, climatic factors, right? So seasonality was a huge issue for me, right? And when you couple that with field work, and I like to put this picture here, and people always ask me, why do I put a picture of myself with a busted seine net? That's a seine net, by the way. I remember that day, and I'll share this experience if time permits really, really quickly, but I was sailing in Beach with then a volunteer research assistant. He just wanted to get, well, he called himself a research assistant. He was a good chap. He said future research assistant. But he was really nice. He volunteered, wanted to get experience in the field. And I remember we were in, this is a portion of the Beach River, right, with Cayman. Yes, you know, wonderful, wonderful, right? And you know, in DLS we like to be very eco-friendly. So instead of buying these bales, which actually you know, they're very expensive for seine nets, you can actually get a nice piece of wood, you know, like a branch, a really good strong piece, and you can actually really sort of net, you know, twine it in, and you have two handles, right? And it works pretty well. But that day in particular, we were sailing for about 2 hours and I didn't get any crabs. And then at that moment, I got some in the seine, and as we pulled up, because there's a particular technique you need to pull up quickly, the net decided that it was going to burst. Right? And when it burst, I caught it quickly, and I actually saved my samples before all of the crabs could have just swam away. And the technician who I so, you know, nicely asked, please, could you just take some photos of the site while we were sailing? He had his camera out and he got that caught on camera. And it was really a moment that reminded me of how much I love what I do. Right? Because even when it happened, I did laugh after, and I was really happy to have, you know, experienced and gotten the samples. And of course, when you're rearing living organisms, if you look at the central picture, that's the size of crabs that we're talking about that I had to rear, and we're talking 2 millimeters to adults, right? And when you take all of that and you put in failed experiments, you really get what we call the dark hours, right? Now, my take-home message, you know, for this question, and, you know, my tip of you would be something that one of my mentors, Dr. Mary Olkins-Koo, she was also on my academic advisory committee, and she's retired now, taught me. She said, you know, Delicia, you can be as perfect as you want to be. You can prep the crabs, you can prep the lab, you can have all the resources, and if they choose to die on you, they're just gonna die, right? And that is sometimes what would have happened, right? And there are just some things that you just cannot control. And she taught me that. And when you get into your postgraduate degree program, you're going to meet obstacles. You're going to meet some challenges. And a lot of it may or may not be may or may not be in your control. And if they're not in your control, it's so much easier for you to just accept it, right? And just brush yourself off and move on. Now, it's not to say to use it as a cop-out for your supervisor, well, it was out of my control, within reason, but it's just to prepare you for this, okay? And on that same thread, with all the challenges and obstacles, have I ever lost my focus, or have I ever, you know, maintained my motivation? How do I stay motivated? Well, as Dr. Mccasker, Dr. Jalsa, Dr. Tweedle, and you know, Mr. Mendes, all of them would have mentioned something in relation to this. If you're really enthusiastic and you're passionate about whatever area you're getting into with the postgraduate program, this is going to help you stay motivated. Trust me, because you're not going to wake up every morning and ask yourselves, why am I doing this, right? And as Dr. Jalsa said, please don't do the program if you have nothing else to do. Okay, because there are going to be a lot of challenges, and there are going to be great moments as well. And passion is there to fuel you on, right? And another one of my mentors, Dr. Azad Mohammed, he was my supervisor for the MPhil and PhD. This is his favorite, you know, word or term, self-motivation. Yeah, it ties in with your passion. You really have to motivate yourself. Find out what are your cues for self-motivation. Find out what keeps you motivated. There are different strategies. People use different things. Some people have a mantra. I remember telling my students, write a little mantra. You know, I am great, I'm powerful, whatever you want, and stick it up on your window, on your mirror. So every day you repeat it to yourself, you know, and a lot of my students came back and told me that, you know, it worked, right? And this is one of the most important points I want to leave with you. If you have not found or do not have a mentor, get one, find one. Mentors are amazing in your postgraduate journey, okay? And they're going to be there to give you the advice, the experience. They have experienced it all already. And they're there to even help you a little bit with the motivation, you know, and especially if you're going to look into industry, you're going to look at career paths, right? Then obviously they're not going to be there to say, here's a job, you know, but they're there to guide you, to help you, you know, with your writing skills, your resume skills, your CV. And I've had several mentors, and I must say they've been super invaluable to me, you know, so that just, you know, make note of that. And of course, this is my last question. What advice would I give to new and upcoming postgraduates? There is a lot that I can give you, but I'm just going to sum up everything in these 2 points because we can't be here for the rest of the day. Okay, but I want you to take this message home. If you're getting into postgraduate programs, again, it's not to scare you, it's to get you excited, okay, about research. You're going to encounter it, whether it's a taught program or whether it's a research-based program, but research is always dynamic, okay? And you need to learn to develop those skills that are going to help you adapt, right? However you adapt, whatever strategies you use, focus on the skills that build that adaptation in you, because it's never going to be the same, and it's going to change. Experiments will change, your objectives may change, your goals may change, but that's the beauty about it. That's the beauty about research, and that's the beauty about science, as people always say. It's never the same, it's always changing. Okay, so you really need to, you know, honing those adaptation skills, you know, mentally. If you find you're not mentally strong, maybe some things you need to focus on, you know, some tips, some books you can read, and so forth. And I like to put this picture up because I remember someone asking me, you know, they're telling me, I feel like I'm a fish out of water, right, when I started this program. And this thought actually came to my head, and I want to share it with you. If you ever feel like you are a fish out of water when you start your program or any point in your postgraduate degree program, then my response to you is to learn, adapt, and grow wings and fly. All right. So that's really what you need to, that's the kind of mentality that you really need to take home with you. And I want to end today with my quote. It's not because, you know, I'm all about me. I just really like it because it represents who I am, right? You're going to meet a lot of people who may compete with you. Some people might ask you, are you competing with someone else? I would suggest no. Focus on yourself and focus on your goals, okay? So if it is that you have certain things you want to accomplish at a certain point in time, that's what you need to focus on. Because really in my race, you know, well, you know, I would call the journey a race, right? Really, I didn't think of anyone in my lane, okay? It was just me and the finish line. And that's exactly philosophically how I thought about it, right? And I always tried and aimed to be a better person each day than I was yesterday, okay? So I just want to end there with that and get you excited. I hope you got inspired and you aware more of the challenges. Okay, and let's open up for any questions. Sorry if I took a little extra time. I just get excited when I'm talking about my research. So thank you very much for having me. And I don't think we have any questions, do we?
Savan, can you clarify if we have any questions or not? Okay, no questions. So thank you, Dr. Singh, sorry. Definitely, I was definitely inspired and definitely learned a lot. I think we left most inspirational for last for sure, because I learned a lot about the mentor, the don't compete with anyone. Like I always tell persons who come to me, the only person you're competing against is yourself from yesterday. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And so I would now go on to all right. So Thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation, Dr. Singh. As undergraduate students, we appreciate hearing insights from a former student, and we appreciate all your advice. Lastly, we have a brief presentation done by our postgraduate representative from FST, Ms. Krishma Ramnath, regarding her postgraduate experience. So, Ms. Ramnath, I bring you back to the fore again.
All right. Hi again, everyone. So as previously mentioned, my name is Karishma Ramnath, but in this segment of the event, I'll just be talking about my experience, not exactly being postgraduate representative. So I did my undergraduate degree in physics, electronics, medical physics, bioengineering, and yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, so all those. And then I started pursuing my postgraduate in biomedical physics with a specialization in medical physics at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus at the Department of Physics. So that's a lot of physics. I've always known that I wanted to continue in the field of physics, but it was not till I started my undergraduate minor in medical physics that I knew that, that's where I wanted to specialize. And as mentioned before by Dr. Singh, you have to find your passion in what you want to do. And that's when I found it. And I was able to find that in my undergraduate degree. So before I began this master's, I was faced with a lot of questions. I had to decide if I wanted to develop my career locally, staying locally to do this master's program, or going abroad to complete an internationally accredited one. And it is a difficult choice to make. And when I had to make that choice, I also had to consider the fact that, COVID was just beginning. So there were a lot of things in play at that point in time. And I genuinely made my decision based on the convenience and safety for myself and my family. But it is definitely not one that I regret at all. I'm currently in my final year of taught courses. As Dr. Mccasker would have mentioned, you have to finish your taught courses before you begin your thesis project. So this is actually my last semester of taught courses, and then I'm to begin my thesis in September. So my program itself is heavily theory-based, and that's really only because regionally there aren't the resources for proper practical experience. But we've been able to explore the fields of nuclear medicine, radiation oncology, radiation dosimetry, and two of the lab courses we have given us some limited and very precautious experience with a lot of medical equipment. So the university does try as best as it can to give us as much practical experience as possible. There are a lot of differences between an undergraduate and a postgraduate program. I've noticed that, particularly for my program, a lot more of the lecturers are actually persons working in the field. And I found that to be just a little bit more beneficial in terms of, for someone like myself who's always looking for a practical aspect, you have visual learners, you have persons who are okay with just understanding a concept from reading a research paper. This program has been able to incorporate all of those, and we have some lecturers that are able to send us videos and pictures from what they're working on at that point in time in work, and it's been very beneficial for us. So we definitely have a more wholesome learning experience. The level of work and the quality of outputs as compared to an undergraduate degree is definitely more. A lot more is expected from a postgraduate student, and that's simply because you're developing your career, you're developing your research, and you're developing your name in this field, whichever field you choose. And you have to put, you should always be putting a lot of effort behind your schoolwork, but it's definitely a lot more important now, especially with producing papers and research journals and whatnot. So that leads to the fact that, some people are actually, when they're pursuing their master's degree or their Enfield degree or their postgraduate degree, a lot of them tend to also be working. But a good thing with our department and my postgraduate program in particular, a lot of the lecturers know this about the students, and they take that into consideration, and they consider that when, you know, when they're giving us assignments and they're giving us deadline dates, they definitely take that into consideration and how much time we're given to do things. So they're very accommodating, and we get reasonable timelines for the assignments. But, you know, don't be fooled, you still have to read for your degree for certain parts, but they're definitely very accommodating. My experience, however, thus far has been really great from the physics department. It's a really enjoyable one. And whenever we have problems in class, it could be with a classmate, a lecturer, or anything. We do have the availability of the staff-student liaison meetings. And I must say that we've been having very good feedback from them in terms of if we bring a problem forward to them, they definitely are efficient in solving all of our issues brought forward, or at least start the process of the rectification for whatever our issues may be, or what we're looking for further in the program. So they're definitely very accommodating at the physics department. Balancing postgraduates and other activities, as Dr. Singh would have mentioned, it can be a lot of times, at times. And like Dr. Singh, I do a lot of things as well. I'm the postgraduate rep. I volunteer at a lot of organizations. I'm also working, and some people always ask, you know, how do you manage it? And it is a lot to manage, but I really believe that, you know, you have to have a really good support system, because sometimes you might have to be juggling reaching home on time for class, having the time in between assignments to, you know, take a breather and relax and remember, you know, life is also there to be experienced while you're still doing a postgraduate program. And I found it integral to have a very efficient and understanding support system. And it is a balancing act, but I do assure you that it can be done. Also, postgraduates will be over before you know it. I mean, I've finished 2 years, and I feel like it's only been 3 months, if so long. So postgraduate is definitely a big decision to make. I loved the decision that I made, and it's definitely something you have to research and think about before you make this step, because it's a big step in terms of your academia and in terms of school and career-wise. It's a big step. So it's not one that you can make irrationally. You need to sit down and think about it and where you want your life and your career to go. So I do encourage you to pursue a postgraduate program if that's something that you really want. As Dr. Singh would have mentioned, the passion for the topic, the career path you choose, and for the topics that you would want to do. So if it's something that you really want to do, yes, I would encourage it. I love the decision that I made. And we could clearly see that from all the presenters that gave little snippets of their topics and their departments today, you do have a support system from the university, and there are persons that you can lean on for support when you need it. So make an informed decision, and of course, reach out to us if you need assistance in any form or fashion, and we will always be here to help if necessary. So thank you very much for listening. And FST Student Council, this was a really well put together program, and I really appreciate that you all took the time to fulfill this need from the students, because it's not something that existed before. I wish this was here in my time. So really kudos to you all. So I don't want to be long, so let's see if we have any questions and we could wrap for the day.
Savan, could you confirm with us if there are any questions? Okay, so with that being said, there are no questions. So thank you so much, Ms. Ramnath, for speaking with us today, both as our postgraduate FST rep and also as a postgraduate student. So since there are no questions, that brings us to the end of our event today. We hope all of you watching, you enjoyed it and you gained some insight about postgraduate studies. I'd also like to give special thanks to all of our speakers for taking their time to present today. And also, Jeremiah, I'd like to say thank you to the FST Student Council, as well as you as our FST rep, for giving me the opportunity to spearhead this event. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. You were an excellent host and excellent spearheader, very dedicated to the cause, and the students, the 3,000 students that we serve, are grateful. I'd like to thank all the speakers, all the lecturers, our guild rep. I'm very pleased at the work that Krishma has been doing. She has been working assiduously with me to get all these concerns. Well, she's been working with me as a mentor. So thank you, Krishma, for taking your time out to come, and to all the other guests. I'd just like to punch in a little note here. Our next Facebook event and YouTube event is the Life Sciences Day 2022. I know you all remember that last year, so I just put it in the plug. It's April 22nd this year, Friday. I believe that is week 13, so hopefully there's a little calm week 13. So hope to see you guys there, and thank you all for the support you've been showing me, and let's finish strong. Thank you all. Good day, and enjoy the rest of the semester.